Hey y'all, how are you glowing this morning? Y'all, so tell me why my air, like, in the middle of the heat and we haven't even reached, like, the summer Florida heat yet, but boy. So my husband touched my air yesterday. I don't know why. He did something trying to fix something. And now I have no air, like cool air. But anyway, that's not what I'm on here for. But I'm still thankful for my car, and I know my air can easily be fixed. So, how are you going this morning? Excuse me for the steering wheel, but I got another video I got to get out. So, it's a story time because I want to talk about, I feel like this will help me release this, and also when I go to my parents and, you know, really ask for forgiveness for this, but also forgiving myself in this situation. So yes, by the title, you probably see what it's about. But this is about the time that I secretly got married. So yes, I secretly got married. I hid it. Me and my husband, we hid it from everybody. I also moved out secretly. Like, I just left and never went back. I'm a grown woman, don't get me wrong, but in my last video where I talk about my struggles as a mompreneur, which is, if you haven't watched that, go back and watch it, because I talk about how I struggled because I had given my power to other people. And in this sense, for a long time, it was my parents and my husband. So I had to, like, break down toxic thoughts, like just how I grew up as a child. I didn't have a horrible childhood, but there were some things that I was missing drastically, like emotional connection and like support from my parents. So in my husband, I didn't know how to, you know, tell him that that's what I needed, because I grew up not having that from my parents, like emotional support, you know, just something that your parents should give as they're raising you. Like, my parents raised me very well, like financially and everything. I was good, but my parents just weren't there for me, like mentally and emotionally. So I went through a lot because I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. So all I really knew was to do what my parents said. Even as an adult, it was hard for me, because if my parents did not approve, then I just didn't do a lot of stuff. And it took me up until, like, I turned 30. I'm 31. To really start to overcome these things and, like, have a different perspective and understand. God really helped me with that one. So that was one of the reasons why I secretly got married. So the story is, okay, so this was, 2010. I had lived on my own before. Like, I lived in Orlando. I had roommates and stuff like that for about a year, and then I ended up moving back home, still with my boyfriend from high school, which is now my husband. And in 2010, I got pregnant with, my ear making noise, y'all. It be acting like it want to get cold, but it don't. So 2010, I got pregnant with my son, Major. That's my oldest child. And then I went through a lot through that pregnancy, and just not receiving the emotional support mental support that I needed from, like, my parents, and my husband, which was my boyfriend at the time. He was growing up at the time too. So it's like, now I get it. We couldn't help each other because we both were struggling from, you know, how we were raised and just things we were looking at, like things we were doing. So I had a baby, got pregnant out of wedlock. Of course, that's a problem when you're a pastor's kid, because I am a pastor's kid. So in 2010, I got pregnant. 2011, January 2011, I had my son. And I was just struggling, like, for real. And I knew that at that time, it was just time for me to change my life. I didn't know how, but I knew that, you know, I felt this pressure of, because I grew up in church, you know, it was like, don't have sex out of marriage. And then to be a pastor's kid and get pregnant, I'm still grown, but I still had that that stigma of being a pastor's kid. So I got pregnant. Then when I told my parents about that, you know, they still wasn't there for me at all, like at all. Like, I didn't have that motherly support that I needed. My mom was just not there throughout my pregnancy. So thank God for my sister, who was there for me throughout my pregnancy. And then 2011, January 2011, I had my son. So then a few months later, you know, I wanted my family to be together. Like my husband agreed to at that time. So I just decided to look for an apartment and just wing it. So I found an apartment, I got approved for it, and I had no discussion with my parents because at that time I just felt like my parents didn't really care about anything that I was doing. I wasn't a bad kid or anything, but I just wanted to move on and grow up, you know. So I felt like because I had a kid, and I felt like I just shouldn't be in my parents' house. So I found an apartment secretly, only my husband knew, and I got approved for it. So we ended up moving out, and like the way that I did it is that I left home one day and I didn't go back home for like 5 days. So basically I never went to my parents and said, oh, I found an apartment, I want to move out. I was just afraid of what they were going to say. I was so scared. Like my parents, I felt like everything that I did to them was wrong, or every move that I made was just wrong. So to go to them and say, I'm gonna move out, I want to get an apartment, you know, for me and Major, I couldn't tell them that I was gonna be moving in with my boyfriend because of course, being a pastor's kid, you know, they don't approve of stuff like that. So I just left home for like 5 days and did not go back. I don't even think I talked to them for those 5 days. So then finally, eventually one night, like a week later, I went home, and you know, they never called or anything, but I knew they were worried, but they never called to see what I could have been dead, you know, but they never called to check on me or anything. And I went back home, and you know, my dad was just like, you know, Chris, they call me Chris, and you could have told us that you wanted to move out. So now that I'm reflecting on this story, I'm like, I was terrified of what my parents would say or what they thought. You know, I thought they would just throw me away because that's already how I felt anyway. So it was just, why should I come tell you? You don't care anyway, right? So I did that. And of course they looking at my boyfriend like, my husband now, but looking at him like, you know, what kind of man does this and that, blah blah blah. But my husband's a great guy. He's always provided for us. So you know, people will look at certain people, you know, my husband could have been worse, but he's a great guy. So yeah, just afraid of just afraid of what my parents would say. And like I said, that was the power that I had given them, because everything that they said mattered. And I was just like, if they had said no, don't come back, blah blah, I probably wouldn't have moved out. So then after I secretly moved out, then I went and got married. Like one day after work, it was like 5 months, nope, this was October 2011. So Major he was about 9 months. Yep, he was 9 months actually. 10 we got married October 10th. So yeah, he was 9 months old. And one day I went home the week before we got married, and I said, I just went to my husband and I was like, you want to go get married? And he looked at me shocked. He looked at me shocked because we have been going through so much stuff, like us personally in our relationship, like just infidelity, and I was just broken. I was a mess because my husband and my parents is what I thought love was at the time. But now I realize that I had to learn to love myself and deal with myself. So when it was like I had on this mask, and I was just blind to everything that was going on in my life, and the fact that I was choosing to live life that way. Man, y'all, I have come a long way. I was choosing to live life that way. So I felt like that's what life was. That was what love was. Like the way that my parents and my husband was treating me emotionally and mentally, like the support that I needed was not there. So I was so broken, but I knew that I didn't want to keep living the way that I was. Like I just wanted to have a better relationship with God. Even, you know, and growing up in church, I just felt like it was so wrong to be living with my boyfriend. We got a kid, and if you understand the church background, then you know. But I was just so broken, y'all, at this time in my life, like so broken. It still took me years after that to get over it, and that's why I'm able to talk about it now, because I'm over it. But went home one day and went to him and was like, you want to go get married? And I was like, even though I knew we were going through a lot, like we were not ready to get married, I still loved him very much, even though for what we went through, I could have left him, but something just would not let me leave. Like, you know, like, I was like, no, I want my son's father. I don't want us to be in separate households. I knew that I loved him, and I knew that he had a lot of growing to do as well along with me. And he was shocked, and he did not think twice about it, because I knew he wanted to marry me. And he was like, yeah, I guess. But his response was like, she talking about marriage? Like, after everything I done put her through, she still want to marry me? You know, that was his response. I'm like, yeah, let's just go get married. We've been talking about it for a long time. We're high school sweethearts, had already been together for years. And I was like, let's just go do it. Let's just go get married. Because I felt like at that time, that's all love was. I didn't get married thinking that, you know, marriage would fix it. I was trying to fix myself in my relationship with God, and that part of me, I felt like I can make things a little bit better if I go get married, because now I'm not just living with my boyfriend, we're married. So he was like, yeah. So, you know, a couple of days went. I think the next day, I had gotten off at like 4 o'clock that day, and it was too late to go to the courthouse. We went to the courthouse. So the next day we went. I had the $100, went and paid. We went and paid. And you had to wait like a week to get the marriage certificate and everything together. And we went and got married. Spiders. Ugh, I just switched it on. But we went and got married like the next day. Me, my husband, and our son Major at the time. Went in a courthouse, applied for the marriage license, went back a week later and said I do's in front of some white lady. And bam, we were married. And we hid that for like, I don't know, a few weeks. Like, nobody knew. My husband was so excited. Like, he was so excited because he was just married. He was like, oh my God, we're married. Like, he was excited. I don't know what I felt. Because I was still a mess inside. So I was like, okay, we're married. You know, but we still had some things that needed to be healed. And it took years, because after we got married, it's like things got worse for me. So because it got worse for me mentally and emotionally, it was worse for my husband, because I was letting it all out on him, not knowing at the time that I needed to fix myself and my perspective and learn to love me. So for years, I mean, from the time I got married, I had started talking about divorce. Like, it was crazy. I started talking about divorce, and I don't want to be with you no more, and, you know, I'm not happy, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I didn't understand that my husband needed help too. But anyway, I didn't go tell my parents until like almost, it was a few weeks later, maybe almost a month, because I knew I couldn't keep hiding it. So I told them, I don't know if I told my mom or my dad first, but probably my dad, because at that time, me and my mom, we never had a close relationship, so I never really could open up to her about personal things. So I could never even go to her and be like, Mom, I want to get married. I could never go to her and be like, Mom, I need advice in this relationship. Couldn't go to my dad. All I had was my sister at the time. So anyway, I think I went to my dad and just told him, I'm like, Dad, I got married. And his response was really like nothing. Like, it was still really nothing. Like, they didn't care, you know. So, but inside I was terrified, because I was like, how am I going to tell them? You know, like, everything that I do, they disapprove of everything that I do. I wasn't a bad person. I didn't club. I wasn't on drugs. I wasn't loose. I wasn't wild. I just wanted to try to do right with my life. And I wanted the approval of my parents. And thank God I've been delivered from that, because when you live a life and you just want to be want people to approve you, you're killing yourself inside. Like, you're killing yourself. But I got married because I thought it was right. And it is right. But you just have to make sure that you're ready for it, because marriage comes along with a lot of stuff that we were not ready for. Like, we went to counseling for a little bit. But at that time, like, I didn't even have my son yet. Like, we went to counseling because we knew we always wanted to get married. But, you know, But my parents still didn't really show any emotion. They still really didn't say anything. And, you know, I told them. I was like, I don't even remember how I told them. But I know I was like, Dad, I'm married. We got married. And that was another thing where he was like, well, you could have told me, you know, blah, blah. I was talking to my husband last night, and I told him I was going to record this video. And I asked him, I'm going to put some clips in of him talking about this too. I wanted to do this video with him, but so you can get his response. But for me, it was a lot of times where my husband actually went to my dad to ask him, you know, I want to marry your daughter. Can I have your daughter's hand in marriage? Which I don't understand where that come from. Like, who even created that for somebody to go ask for the father's hand in marriage? Like, where does that come from? But anyway, if you know, please comment, let me know. But my husband had made many attempts to go to my dad and say, you know, I would love to marry your daughter, can I? And my dad's response, this is what my husband told me. He was like, my dad will always say, you know, it's up to Chris, or even if I said no, Chris will probably say yes, or if I said yes, Chris will say no. So it really don't matter what I say. Just if she want to marry you, she'll marry you anyway. Now, I don't know, like, my parents are just that type of people. Like, they don't even have a close relationship with my husband. Never try to have, even right now, never try to have a close relationship with us to build us up. We actually get that from other people. But you know, and I'm thankful for the people that we have now in our lives to help us in our marriage, because if we had that in the beginning, around the time when, you know, we first got married, we would probably be, you know, way better off, maybe. But you know, all things happen for a reason, and God it's his timing. Even though we cause a lot of things, but it's his timing. Anyway, you know, my dad pretty much said it don't matter what I say anyway, so if y'all get married, you know, oh well. So we went to the courthouse, and now my husband and I were still together after many struggles. But the reason that I hid my marriage and hid, you know, moving out of my parents' house and trying to just do right by my son at that time is because I had given power to my parents. I was just afraid of what they would say because they disapproved of everything. And when you find yourself in a position where you have to hide things from someone and you're scared to go before them, first off, I think it's something within you, because you should be confident in everything that you do. But also, you need to, like, analyze that relationship and figure out what's wrong. Like, why are we like this? And maybe there's some things that you need to overcome and get over, but you have to be confident in everything that you do, because if you take an approach on something in a negative way, it's gonna start off wrong. Like, and that's what happened with me. I had the perspective of, you know, being afraid of my parents and what they would say, because there was a totally different life that I wanted to live, but my parents wanted me to do certain things. Like, say for instance, when I graduated high school, I was in love with music. Like, I wanted to just go be in the entertainment industry. I wanted to write music, record music. I just wanted to be in the entertainment industry, period. And I had them put in my mind that I couldn't do that because my parents wanted me to do something else. My dad wanted me to go in the military, so guess what I did? I went in the military when I graduated high school. My dad wanted me to go do real estate. He wanted me to go be a state trooper. He wanted me to go be so many things. So because my dad wanted me to do this, I felt like I couldn't do what I knew was within me and stay true to myself. So that's why I would hide a lot of things from them, and I couldn't go to them to talk to them about anything and be confident in you know, that the conversation would turn out right. So I tell this story because I've overcome, and it took years, but it's when you shift your mindset, when you begin to love yourself, then you can move forward in anything, trusting in God and not in people. So back then when I got married, it was like I should have had my trust in God. My relationship just was not there with God, but I felt like I was doing right by God, if you get what I'm saying. And your confidence has to be in yourself and in God, within your relationship with God, not in your parents, because your parents are not always going to be who you want them to be, and your husband is not going to always be who you want him to be. So you have to walk in confidence, knowing that what you're doing is right for you, and put that in your mind. Because like I said, if you go into things with negativity, if you make a decision with negative energy behind it, it's not going to be right in the beginning. It's going to take a lot for you to shift that, you know, that time in your life or that decision you made into something positive. And now it's something positive for me, because my husband and I, even though we've been through a lot, we've grown a lot, and now we can sit back and we can talk about these things and talk about what we are going to do for our children moving forward. So we talk about what we have to do within ourselves, so in our relationship with our children and raising our children, so they don't have to hide things like that from us. Like, I would be so devastated. Like, I would probably cry if my son or daughters came to me and said, I went and got married, and they hid that from me. Or if they moved out secretly and was gone for like a week and I had no idea where they were. I would be devastated, because I don't want them to hide things like that from me. Like, I want my kids to feel confident in the fact that they could come and talk to me about any and everything, even if I don't approve. Like, I want them to feel confident to come talk to me about it. I don't want them to hide anything from me, because life back then when I got married is definitely not the same now, and my children are young. So imagine when they become adults, the way that this world is going to be. And I want them to be confident that they could come lean on me, and I wasn't confident in the fact that I could go lean on my parents. So that's why I hid everything, because they disapproved of everything. And I want my kids to know that just be confident. It's your life. You're an adult. Just be confident in your decisions and make sure that it is right for you. And this is why I'm going to cultivate the relationship with God, because I want them to pray about everything. So even if I say something is not right, that does not mean that it's not right for them. If you get what I'm saying, because a lot of people are going to disapprove of what you do in life, but that don't mean that it's not right because people disapprove. Like, I want my kids to do what's right for their life. A lot of the times, and we all know this, that people might not see the vision in the beginning, but if God gives you something, you have to run with it, because there are going to be people that disapprove. It's up to you where your mindset at and where your confidence is to move forward regardless of everything, the rejection, the trials and the errors and the miscommunication. Like, at that time I wasn't there, and all of my dependence was in what people thought of me, because that's how I was raised. Like, I was raised in church. I was a pastor's kid, so everybody looked at me as if I had to be this great kid and I could do no wrong and blah 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 and just whatever. And I don't want that for my kids. So I just wanted to tell that story real quick about how it happened and just where I am now and how to move forward with my children after experiencing something like that. I don't ever want my kids to experience that. So yes, I secretly got married and I secretly moved out, and me and my parents still don't have the greatest relationship, but I tell this story and I reflect on these things because I want to make sure that I don't have the same approach in parenting. I want to make sure that I don't do the same things. I just want to make sure that I do right by my kids, and I want to instill confidence in them to come talk to me and about anything or any decision that they want to make. I'm not going to disapprove, but I'm going to give my opinion. But I'm also going to teach them that my opinion matters, but it does not matter. If I say no, don't do something, don't not do it if you feel it's right for your life, because I don't want to control my children as an adults. I don't want to control them when they become, like, I don't really want to have full control over. I give God full control over my children. I'm just raising them up and doing what I have to do along with God to make sure that they fulfill the purpose that they need to. And because I depended so much on what my parents thought of me, like my purpose and who I was in Christ and everything just went out the door. It all became who Crystal was in the eyes of her parents. And that's where we slip and fall and slide all the way down and roll and trip and get up again and fall, because my dependence was in the wrong place. So that's it. So hopefully I'll do a part 2, because this video went longer than I thought it would. But I'll do a part 2 with my husband's reaction to the whole situation of us moving out, secretly hiding it from everybody. Nobody knew. His parents, nobody knew. We just told people as we went along. Oh, we got married. Oh, we're married now. Oh, like we didn't have a wedding. We didn't tell anybody. We didn't have any witnesses. And now I tell this story too because now I'm planning a vow renewal and to have a wedding. This is our 7th year of being married. It was not easy, but boy, I tell you, God is so good. We're still here because marriages end so easily these days that it's like the Kim Kardashian 72-day marriage and all that stuff. That is what society is putting out in the world, that marriage is like nothing, and it is a big deal, and you have to do what you have to do. So I'm out, y'all. I'm all oily and sweaty because my ear is just like but tell me what you think. If you hid anything from your parents, tell me about it. Like, I want to know. Like, tell me about it, and tell me if you have children, tell me like what are you going to do moving forward so that your children will avoid doing the same thing. Also let me know how you instill confidence in your children to come talk to you and to be confident in who they are and the decisions that they make to make sure that it is right. Like, what are you going to do even if your children are young? Also let me know what you think of this video. Like I said, there will be a part 2 with my husband on his reaction of that situation. I'm sorry, of that situation. So remember to glow. Sorry. Remember to glow. Remember to affirm yourself. Remember to do what makes you happy. Follow me on the Mommy Glow Up on Instagram and let me know what you think. I'm out, y'all. I'm all sweaty and oily and stuff like that. So peace.